have a remarkable journalists who have done in-depth reporting, who have made careers in investigative journalism. So this is not something new which is happening here. But I think what we are lacking is kind of a support system for investigative journalists, for young investigative journalists, how to train a new generation of journalists into watchdog reporting at a time when the market pressure is pushing more and more journalists on a lifestyle stories, on a fashion stories, taking them beyond newsrooms to areas which basically end up in entertainment. So I think that is a key question we are facing here in India, here in Asia, in different parts of the world. And I think that's where we need to come together to make sure that we are able and we are willing to share our skills, tools, techniques, and we are open to receive ideas in terms of building a collaborative investigative journalism networks, in terms of doing collaborative journalism stories.
It is undeniable that without good investigative reporting, democracy cannot flourish. In order for democracy to work, people have to know what happens. Good reporting is what brings that information to them. And in order for democracy to work well, powerful institutions and individuals have to be held accountable. And that's what investigative reporters do.
I think all journalism, frankly, has to be investigative in nature, because essentially we are here to try and unearth wrongdoings, to speak truths to power. I know we've drifted away from a lot of these things, and we've started doing what I call Republic Day parade reporting. You just report what you see, you don't go beyond that. So I think all journalists should frankly approach their stories with an investigative bent, should try and go beyond what is just on the surface, beyond the headlines, and try and dig out something which holds this is the broad establishment accountable.
Investigative journalism is the journalism of accountability. It's about watchdogging how power works in society. You know, it has a long and determined record. These are sort of the special forces of journalism. Investigative reporters tend to be better trained. They go after tougher targets, and they have the best tools of any journalist. So they're really the ones who are working in a story sense on the front lines of reporting all over the world.
I think investigative journalism is, it's like a race of long-distance runners. And what you need in investigative journalists is the stamina to do a story over months and maybe years. And it's gatherings like this where you have over 300 investigative journalists and aspiring investigative journalists that probably is the breeding ground for this kind of long distance running.
Investigative reporting fills a fundamental need for society, and really goes to the core of the reason that journalism is important and the reason that journalism matters to people. And the way we define investigative reporting may be broader than what you'd be thinking. When I think about investigative reporting, I don't just think about projects that take months and months to do and a lot of resources, though that's important. But we also think of investigative reporting as a journalist who's working on a beat and covering something daily, but who knows how to dig, who knows how to ask the right questions, who can help hold people accountable. Some people refer to this as accountability journalism, which is another way to think about it. The goal being that you look at the people who are in power, whether it's a government official, whether it's somebody who runs a large business, whether it's someone who runs a large NGO, anybody or any organization that has a lot of impact over the lives of people. Those people and those organizations need to be held accountable. And that's what I think of more as investigative journalism. The format, the length of the story, the time it takes to report are almost secondary to the mission, the goal, and the results of the work.
I work in the area of health. And to be honest, there's very little investigation in the area of health for two reasons. One, because health is a good thing. And so we assume that anything that happens in the name of health is a good thing, and therefore we could put aside our normal journalistic, investigative tendencies. The other thing, of course, is that people who talk about health tend to be specialists. They're doctors, they're scientists, they've got PhDs, and journalists tend to be a little bit intimidated. And my message really is that there are, in health as in any other area, there are simple tools and techniques that we can use to scrutinize health in the same way and investigate health in the same way that we investigate every other area. And these are simple tools. There's data available. And I think it's really important for journalists to treat health like any other sector and scrutinize it in the public interest.
We need to train, and we need to get ourselves trained on how do we authenticate and verify information. We actually live in an era where we are in an information glut 24/7. Information is coming into us by exclusive sources, by public sources, everywhere, even on our phones. So right now, I think the main skills that are needed is, number one, to verify and authenticate information, and also to separate what is needed, what should be not included. And there's a lot of gossip and other stuff that gets published in the front pages of our newspapers, and also as the main news bulletin, that simply don't have any kind of informative value to the audience.
All over South Asia, we need more and more investigative journalism, and we need more outlets to print, publish, broadcast, whether it is radio or whether it is print or whether it is online media. And I would add that we need to add both spread as well as depth to investigative journalism. By depth, I mean we just need more professional investigative skills. By spread, I mean we must reach the nooks and crannies of South Asia, not just doing English language journalism and considering that we have done our job. We must go into the national or local languages. For example, in Nepal, we even have the right term for investigative journalism in Nepali, Khoj Patrakarita. And with Khoj Patrakarita, we've really been able to inform the public. And when the public gets properly informed with good journalism, that's when you'll have socio-political change.
Stamina. The other is an eye for detail. The third is the yearning still to do legwork, and not just telephone journalism or research journalism. So legwork, stamina, long distance running, eye for detail, and of course coalescing and researching a lot of data and reference.
I don't have any fantastic tips to offer. We've heard some terrific talks on how to go about it, but I think the primary thing needs to be that you need to be very, very deeply skeptical of whatever you hear, any kind of official announcement, any kind of government scheme, anything that has happened. It could be a bomb blast, it could be an earthquake, it could be drought. Be deeply skeptical of whatever's rolled out as the answers. Always try and go beyond that. Two, I would say be factually rigorous. There's a lot of mediocrity, there's a lot of cutting corners in journalism today, and to be an investigative journalist, I would say factual rigor is very, very key.
Investigative reporting is not rocket science. All it requires is an inquisitive nature, a desire to learn what's going on in the world, a perceptive eye, an eagerness to find out stories that the people in power don't want us to know about, and an interest in keeping the public informed. There are skill sets that go into that, like good database skills, and I would add an old standby, really good interviewing skills that make for great reporting. And anybody who's interested in a better society can't find a better job than doing good journalism.
So to do great investigative reporting, it really takes several things, I think. One's going to sound kind of silly. It's the investigative mindset. The idea that as a journalist, it's your responsibility to make people tell you what's going on, and then the willingness to fight for information, to not accept answers that don't really tell you what's going on, and to do the kind of work that holds people accountable. Having the right mindset going into an interview or going into a story can make all the difference in the world on succeeding or failing in doing a story that has impact and that matters.
If you look at the root of investigation, look in a dictionary. Investigation means systematic inquiry. It's not, you're not just covering a fire and reporting on how many fire trucks and how much damage was done. You're asking, why did the fire happen? How well prepared was the fire department? Did they have good equipment? If they didn't, why didn't they have? You're asking systematic questions about what goes on in your society. That's an investigation.